Hello everyone, and welcome to my Week 5 Teambuilder video against Kangaroo Jolty and the South Norfolk Noiverns. He has a team of Zygarde 50%, Zeraora, Primarina, Crobat, Hitmontop, Rampardos, Houndoom, Tangrowth, Cresselia, Fortress, and Gastrodon. So this week I'll be bringing a team, I didn't even put to the sideways view, of Greninja, Archeops, Megaltaria, Zostula, Landorus Incarnate, and Muckalola. So before we begin team building, it's important to address a lot of things that were in mind when I was building this. This primarily comes down to Jolty's playstyle, and Jolty has a very particular playstyle where he likes to kind of just sit around with do nothing fat a lot and just try and outstall opponents, toxic stall them down, and just sit around with fat that really doesn't do anything. So I feel that what a lot of people don't do is like watch what Jolty does and try and take advantage of the fact that that's exactly what Jolty does, is try and win through fat, and kind of just brings a lot of momentum killing fat. So if you're able to keep up momentum on him and bring things that beat down fat, you do have a much better time against him. Fortunately, I don't have anything offensively that is able to threaten his fat in terms of wall breaking. I just do not have the wall breakers to deal with his fat immediately. Things like Breloom could, I've considered things like Breloom with weakness policy to try and break through things like Tangrowth. But the thing is, he's always got a Crobat, and you could try and sub to deal with Tangrowth or possibly Crobat coming in, but then Crobat has Infiltrator. Things like Physical Gren, but then Physical Gren just can't deal with normal things after they're dead. And even then, Physical Gren doesn't have enough power to break the Tangrowth because it's so naturally physically bulky. And then Crest kind of can just really kind of eat up any given hit. And then things like Mamoswine, which normally do a great job breaking just based on typing alone. Things like Cresselia and Gastrodon are just so obscenely bulky that they don't care about your dual stab if you don't have like base 150 attack or something. So I have to get creative with how I want to break down his team. So I do feel that I have some creative options to do so, though. So first up, I have a Choice Specs Gren. His team is pretty weak to Dark, especially if his Primarina goes down. His only Dark resist beyond that are Houndoom, and you don't want to switch a Houndoom in on a Gren. So this Greninja should do a good job of applying pressure offensively, but the main thing I want is a Toxic Spike, because it'll force him to defog and force him to go really into his defogger before he does anything, because if Tangrowth, Gastrodon, Zygarde, Zeraora, Primarina, any of them get toxic, it makes his team immensely easier to deal with. So getting down that Toxic Spike will pressure him a lot, almost force him straight into a defogger, which is really good for me, and makes him waste a turn to defog. It gives me momentum to keep kind of beating him down. I have HP Grass, just so I'm not walled by Gastrodon eternally if he wants to try and do that. Or if I feel I need to snipe Primarina or Gastrodon coming in, I can do that. Other than that, just Dual Stab, which go unresisted besides Primarina. So Primarina definitely could come. He either has to bring AV Tang or Primarina to deal with this. Or he could even bring both. We'll see. But yeah, that's the Greninja. It has enough speed to always outrun Houndoom and always outrun a Scarf Primarina. Next up, I have Archeops. Archeops is probably my best overall breaker against his team. He has very few flying resists. Actually, only one, and it's Zeraora. And he does have things I could possibly switch in, like Gastrodon and Cress, but they both sacrifice a ton of momentum, especially in the case of Cress. I can just U-turn on it, get a lot more momentum. I'm also allowed to be adamant this week because the only thing I need to outrun is Zygarde. And I can do that. I can outrun Zygarde without being jolly. Um, so yeah, he has very few switch-ins to flying-type moves. His best ones are probably Crest and Gastrodon. Zeraora is always going to be a risky switch-in because it can eat an Earthquake, and even then Acrobatics is doing like a solid 40 to it. If I have T-Spikes up, the thing's going to start really getting whittled quickly. With Acrobatics into a U-turn, I can force Crest to recover and get a free switch into something else. So yeah, that's the Archeops. It can do a good. It's probably just my best effective breaker and the thing that can apply pressure and force him into his fat. And I want him to try and sit around with his do nothing fat, which is what he likes to do anyways. So yeah, that's the idea here. So next up is Altaria. Altaria is here just because it has to be to deal with Zygarde. I do not have a solid grass type on my team. Like, my best is Breloom, and Breloom is not. It could possibly eat arrows, but it's not. If it clicks anything besides arrows, Breloom is not taking it. Altaria can do fine against it. Choice Band, Adamant, 1,000 Arrows is doing a bit too much for comfort, but yeah. Hyper Voice doesn't quite kill it, but I'm hoping if I'm able to get up the Toxic Spikes, then I can ship it into into range. I can always so 1,000 Arrows, so long as I don't get crit, I can just kind of recover stall him for a while until he wants to switch out, or just recover until I make a profit and then Hyper Voice him, and then like repeat. But other than that, because 1,000 Arrows is doing like 40-ish, so I'd have to like recover till I get back up to 100, so I can eat one Hyper Voice, and then, or so I can eat two Hyper Voice, and then keep recovering, get back to 100, and do it again. Flamethrower is here just so I can deal with the Fortress if he wants to switch that in, and also to hit the Crobat if I need to. Heal Belt is very important to bring against Jolty. If any of you are watching this Team Builder and have to play Jolty at any point, he loves to Toxic all your mons and sit around while your mons die of Toxic. You bring Heal Bell against Jolty. I learned that in our first matchup where he Toxic'd my Jellicent and my Sylveon. I had to switch between Jellicent and Sylveon for 100 turns while they both just died of Toxic and recover between them until I finally got a turn to get my Talonflame in and end the game. So that all could have been avoided had I run Heal Bell on my Sylveon. So if you're playing Jolty and you're watching this, get Heal Bell on a mon if you can against Jolty. Yeah, Roost, it's just pretty standard defensive Altaria. It can also deal with Zeraora to some extent, because Zeraora doesn't really get anything that hits it too hard. You could use Celium Z, but I don't think that kills. Zygarde does get Iron Tail, which is definitely a problem, because if he bans himself into Iron Tail, that's not too bad, because I can go into like Selly and I'll be fine. But if he is set up with Iron Tail, that's a problem, because he can eat a Hyper Voice and then possibly even get to +2 and then Iron Tail me. +2 Iron Tail does not kill me, luckily, unless he crits. So we're going to hope that it doesn't happen. It shouldn't, because it's only a 75% accurate move. But he does beat me one-on-one if he Dragon Dances as I come in. I Hyper Voice, he Iron Tails. I have to let die, and as he Iron Tails again. But I do have things to revenge the Zygarde. So yeah. Although the chances of him hitting both Iron Tails back to back is like 0.75 times 0.75. What is that? I'll calculate real quick because I feel like it. About 56%. So I mean, I'll take those odds. I mean, I'm going to have to. But yeah, so that's kind of the situation with Zygarde. It's definitely his most dangerous thing, and if he gets lucky with it, or if he's able to pressure my Altaria, get up hazards, or if I can't get off my Mega, then I could be in trouble. I'm going to skip over these last two because they're kind of special. Next up is my Landorus. It's pretty standard. Always outruns... who does it always outrun? Oh, that's always outrunning Zygarde, yeah. Defog, just if he spike stacks me with Fortress, I'm able to get rid of him if I need to. I've got HP Ice to hit the Zygarde and 2-hit KO it. Yeah, so if Zygarde ever gets out of hand, I've got this to deal with it. which is why I'm okay with Altaria going down to, as long as he doesn't get to +2. U-turn to grab momentum, and Earthquake allows me to revenge Zeraora and Houndoom. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I've got 112 EVs, which guarantees I live Adamant, Zygarde, +1 Outrage. So if he ever does, like, get to +1, kill my Altaria, I can always live that Outrage. Or if he gets... I can always live an Outrage if I somehow need to. Or... Okay, it's the switch in on a... I realize that made no sense. It's a switch in. If I ever absolutely need to, I can have an extra switch into Outrage if he bans it into it. Yeah, and the 100 and the rest is kind of just dumped into attack to maximize damage. So my last two. So Jolty, like I said, loves to sit around with his fat. So what I intend to do, for the most part, is have my own fat that is also fat that happens to destroy opposing fat, which Celesteela is notorious for doing in OU, but also Muckalola. Both of these very fat mons can't get toxic, which he loves to do. Crest does not have anything on any of them. Gastrodon can possibly burn them, but I've got Heal Bell. So these fat mons do not give a fuck about Jolty's fat. Tangrowth, they neither care. Even if he has HP Fire on max special defense Selly, he's doing like 20. So if he's not invested, and if he is invested, then he's even easier to take down. So Selly, toxic, put him on a timer. I can put Selly on a timer, Tangrowth on a timer, anything that wants to come in. Jolty usually doesn't run Heal Bell, so a great way to break through Jolty's tendency to want to sit around is to just kill you with toxic, is to actually just put him on toxic him and then make the sitting around not benefit him. Leech Seed just to get the recovery, because Celesteela is very hard for him to kill. Only Zeraora and Houndoom can effectively do it, and they do not ever want to switch in on an Earthquake, which I have to keep them out. Depending on the situation, when Celesteela first comes in, I may just straight click Earthquake just to keep them from coming in and possibly snipe them. But I do have Toxic to wear things down and Leech Seed to get my health back and wear things down at the same time. Celesteela should just be a kind of a menace this game that's able to just wear down his fat, but at the same time his things that aren't fat don't want to come in on it. Zygarde never wants to take a Toxic or a Leech Seed. So yeah, Celesteela should be able to really pressure his team and put him. Celesteela really puts you in a situation where you have to consider what's going to happen. Probably his best option to deal with it is Fortress, if I'm honest, and I can Leech Seed it and then probably just go into something like a Gren or something and then pump him. I don't know exactly. It's probably the biggest problem, and I can't fit Flamethrower on a set, I'm pretty sure. I might have to consider whether I can or not over Heavy Slam. But I do like being able to hit Primarina, but I did add Muck after I added Heavy Slam. But then I can't hit Zygarde. And I don't hit Crobat as hard. I don't know how much I respect the Fortress. But anyways, you get the idea. I also have a hair speed creep in case you wanted to creep me with his face. Primarina. If you wanted to creep a no speed Silly. So lastly, I've got Muck and it's Curse Recycle, which really kind of destroys him. His only possible response is the Zygarde, and even then Zygarde, I can eat a +1, or I can eat, if I get a curse up, I can eat 1,000 arrows so long as it's not +1. Even then, if it's +1, it's iffy. It's a roll to kill, I probably won't take it. But if I'm able to Toxic the Zygarde or something, then I can put this thing in a very good situation to win the game. Yeah, he just has nothing that really effectively kills it, and it sets up all over his fat. Gastrodon is really the only fat that can stop it, And even then, Earth Power is not 2-hit KOing, Earthquake is not 2-hit KOing after I get a curse up, and I'm faster, so I can get that curse up before he ever wants to attack me. If Gastrodon's toxic, it's going to be immensely harder for him to deal with this. I set up all over Selly, he can't toxic me, he can't psychic me. I set up all over Tangrowth, even if it has Earthquake after I get a curse up or two, it's not killing. So yeah, much like Celesteela, it's a fat mon that his offense really can't come in and beat, and it beats his fat and abuses his fat. So that's kind of the concept of this team, is to have fat that abuses his fat, and then some gel or glue kind of just to check a lot of his team, like a good breaker, and then something for toxic spikes, and also breaking and speed control. So yeah, hopefully the team's able to come out with a win. I'm very afraid of the Zygarde. I think if there is a way he wins, it's by either hacking through the Altaria, or I do have to make sure I mega early so that I can deal with the Zygarde. And I may switch to Flamethrower. I'm not sure. I'll have to look into it a bit more. But yeah, biggest threat is Zygarde, and if I'm unable to control it, I think that's how I lose the game. But I think Jolty will have a hard time, especially with his playstyle, to break through a team that not only counters his team, but counters his playstyle. So I'll see you in the battle.